Good morning, folks. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy John from Project Ellsworth. Last week, I saw my buddy Craig over at All Movie Reviews with Craig put out a video showcasing what he believes are 21 movies that everybody should have in their movie collection. And then I saw that Brad over at Bronco Juggalo also did one of these videos, and I think it's a fantastic idea. So I'm going to try and push this idea forward a little bit, and I'm going to do one of these videos myself. This is my 21 movies that I think should be in everybody's movie collection. I only had to say that like 8 times to get it right. And it still probably ain't right. As I always do, I want to start off by saying I hope everybody out there is doing well and staying safe. All right, so I literally put these movies in a randomizer online because there was no way in the world that I was going to even make an attempt at ranking these movies. Keep in mind, these are just 21 of my favorite movies. These are not all horror movies. When it's all one genre, it's reasonably easy to rank. When you do it like this, for me anyway, in here, it's not very easy to rank these movies. So, of course, the randomizer's first movie that spit out was Halloween, John Carpenter's 1978 classic that birthed the slasher movie for the most part. I absolutely love Halloween, love everything about it, love Michael Myers. As you can see, I'm into Michael Myers a little bit. I just dig it. Halloween's like my favorite movie of all time. So, that's the first movie. Next up is, I'm not going to sit here and rattle off what number these are either, because I'm not ranking these, that's ridiculous. Next up is a movie called Lion. I realize that a lot of you may not even have ever heard of this movie. This movie is wonderful. It is about a little boy who gets lost and spends his whole life not quite fitting in, and then there's a point in the movie where he's trying to find his family, and it's a tearjerker. If you like really good dramatic movies that are tearjerkers, that movie right there is for you. Fixing my chair. Absolutely love Lion. If you haven't seen that or never heard of it, take my word for it. If you like those types of movies, find that movie and watch it. Next up, everybody knows about this, The Story of Henry Hill. Goodfellas. I know I might get hit by a bolt of lightning for this statement, but I think that this is the best gangster movie that's ever been made. So, my opinion, folks, be nice. I absolutely love this movie. Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, fantastic, absolute classic movie. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've seen this movie, and I never get tired of watching it. If I were to turn on my TV right now, and it's in the middle of Goodfellas, I'm sitting here now and I'm watching Goodfellas for another hour. Fantastic. All right, next up, The Breakfast Club. I remember when this movie came out, I couldn't wait to see it. I actually saw it in the movie theater. These John Hughes films are wonderful, and all of the movies that came from that period in the 80s, just if you're somebody who grew up in the 80s in this time period, these movies all kind of hit close to home for you. But I just figured I'd pick this one because it's probably the most widely known. I mean, there's a ton of them. There's 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink and Better Off Dead and Weird Science and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I don't think that one was a John Hughes film, but you catch what I'm saying. All those movies from that period are very special to me. I absolutely love them. So, The Breakfast Club. Next up is one of what I believe is the greatest movies ever made. I absolutely love this. I know that my friend Andrew Ballina on here loves this movie, The Goonies. Really cool steelbook that I picked up at Best Buy this year, or last year. This movie is wonderful. This is another one. Hey, you know what? Almost all of these movies, I'd say, I just don't get tired of watching them. They're just fantastic, fantastic movies. Ridiculous. No corona. Coming of age story. Kids on an adventure looking for treasure. Getting chased by a couple of mobsters. This movie... I use that term mobsters loosely. This movie's fantastic. If you haven't seen Goonies, check out. I have to assume that you've all seen Goonies. But if you haven't for whatever reason, find Goonies and watch it. Seriously, it's incredible. Next up is The Godfather. This is the one that most people probably think is the greatest gangster movie of all time. And you honestly can't argue that point sincerely. This is like a flawless movie. It's an absolute classic. I love The Godfather. I remember watching this movie when I was reasonably young and being blown away by this movie. Al Pacino is amazing in this movie. What more can you say about The Godfather that has not already been said? It's very cliche. It's my way of saying I'm not going to keep rambling on about The Godfather. All right, next up is another absolute classic that I have to assume that everybody has seen 35 times. Jaws. Just got this 4K edition of Jaws this past year on my birthday last summer. This is beautiful. The 4K of Jaws is mind-blowing. It's amazing what they can do with a film that's 45 years old. It's absolutely ridiculous. The scan of this is gorgeous. This movie's wonderful. I mean, there's a lot of people now, I have a younger boy in my house that can't stand Jaws because he hates the way the shark looks, because he's been raised in a CGI world. For me, I would not trade the shark in that movie for the greatest CGI that has ever been created, or a shark that they could make in 2021. I love Jaws. I think that that's another movie that's flawless. The shark in that movie, to me, looks absolutely amazing. Granted, I grew up with it. I've been watching Jaws my whole life. I love that movie. Next up, Star Wars Episode 4. I guess you could probably pick any one of the first 3 Star Wars movies, but for me, I remember going to the movie and seeing this with my dad when I was a little boy, and it changed my life. I love Star Wars, man. I absolutely, positively. Luke, Han, Chewie, Leia, all of them in this, C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader, everybody. I have a soft spot in my heart for this movie, too. It's just, I lost my father about 20 years ago, and this is one of the movies that every time I see it, it makes me think of Dad. So, love Star Wars, always will. Can't start thinking about that too much. All right, next up, Saving Private Ryan. This dude could probably appear on this list for me 5 or 6 times. Love Saving Private Ryan. The opening scene to this movie got a whole lot of hype when this came out. I also saw this movie in the movie theater, and it did not disappoint. I was blown away by this movie from beginning to end, but the opening to this movie is absolutely mind-blowing, and Tom Hanks' performance in this film is what it always is. It's just top-notch, next-level stuff. Love it. All right, next up, Back to the Future. I like the second one a whole lot. The third one's all right. I'm not crazy about it. But the first Back to the Future movie is just, it's a classic. You don't get much better than, Marty and Doc. Fantastic, exciting, very different, groundbreaking at the time. Just, it's a great movie. I look at Michael J. Fox now, and it saddens me. I think back to when he was Alex P. Keaton and when he was Marty McFly, and the whole Parkinson's thing, to me, it's just a sin. Here I go getting on that kind of stuff again. My mom has Parkinson's, so Michael, Alex P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox, his stuff means more to me, than whatever. All right, next up, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. This movie is groundbreaking, incredibly important. Gunnar Hansen, Toby Hooper in the project. Absolutely. I just think that this movie, a lot of people out there consider this movie to be the greatest horror movie ever made. There's a lot of people out there, one of my friends, Ben, in particular, this is their favorite movie of all time. It's definitely in my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time list. Love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's gross, and it feels gross. And I know that I've seen in documentaries that it was like 1,000,000 degrees outside when they made that movie, and it feels like it was 1,000,000 degrees outside when they made that movie. It looks like it smells bad. It looks uncomfortable and gritty and filthy and grimy and unclean. All of that is captured so well on film in that movie. Toby Hooper's masterpiece. I know there's other movies that people like. I believe the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I hate it. I can't stand it. and I know the third movie gets a lot of love, and there's other Tobe Hooper projects out there that people like more than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I ain't one of them and I never will be. I love that movie. Next up, The Shining. Absolutely love The Shining. This is another one that I don't ever get tired of watching. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many times I've seen this movie. It's an unacceptable number of times probably for most people. The amount of time in my life that I've spent sitting there watching Jack Torrance. Fantastic, out in the middle of the nowhere, Overlook Hotel. Just Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall were fantastic in that movie. Love The Shining. Next up, John Carpenter's The Thing. Not my favorite John Carpenter movie, but probably the best John Carpenter movie that's ever been made, in my opinion. Halloween's my favorite horror movie of all time, but I think that this is probably a better movie. I think it's a better story. I think it's deeper. The CGI in this movie is the stuff of legend. Probably the greatest CGI. Lord Almighty. Scratch that. The practical effects in this movie are probably the greatest practical effects in cinema history. For me, okay, I'll change that. That's a very bold statement. For me, probably the best practical effects in cinema history. Between this and Day of the Dead, I think that the practical effects are just... they're so good that it almost looks like they're just showing off. It's fantastic. It's almost unbelievable that they were able to create what they created in this movie with the practical effects. But Kurt Russell was fantastic in this. The story was compelling. It's just, and this is another one. You got the feeling that it was freezing cold. You know, it's just, you felt like you were there with this movie. And this is another one. I've seen it 1,000 times. It's just such a stinking great movie. Here's one that I have not watched in a while. I've seen it 400 times in my life probably, but it's been a while since I've watched it. Scarface. This is probably my favorite Al Pacino performance over The Godfather. Godfather's fantastic. Pacino was wonderful. Pacino was crazy incredible in this movie. Absolutely phenomenal. Cuban drug lord. Yeah. Say hello to my little friend. You know, that's where that came from. This movie, when I saw it, I was shocked by some of the violence in this movie. You never seen so much cocaine in your life. Just, I couldn't even, watching this guy go from like rags to riches to dead, you kind of figure that that's going to happen in a movie like this. But the arc of this movie, I thought was really, really cool. To see him literally come from nothing to having, you know, everything. The world is mine, spinning, and you know, it's, was that in his house? I think that was in his house. It was like in a fountain. Who cares? He had a globe spinning that said the world is mine on it. And that was the way he viewed things, that he got to be so wealthy through drug dealing that he could have anything he wants, hence the world is mine. You guys ever see New Jack City when Nino Brown yells the world is mine? That's where it came from. All right, next up, The Silence of the Lambs. I think that this is quite arguably one of the greatest horror movies that has ever been made. And there are a lot of people who don't think that this is a horror movie. It doesn't matter to me because this is my opinion. This is a horror movie. It's about a serial killer. It's about people who eat people. It's so well made and so creepy. And this is another one. You feel like you're in there with Agent Starling. It's wonderful. Anthony Hopkins is one of the... Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Hopkins' performance as Hannibal Lecter is one of the scariest characters that has ever been in a movie that I've ever seen in my life. Love it. Next up, Alien. This one was a game changer, in my opinion. Prior to this, I don't remember ever, you know, granted, when this came out, I was a little boy, but I'm not aware of very many movies that have ever existed prior to this one that were about aliens that were made like this. The aliens in this movie are scary as hell. And it's minimal. It's like a minimalism idea with the amount that you see the things in this movie. But you see them enough that they just creep you out. If you're looking for more of an action type alien movie with more going on in it, watch Aliens, the sequel. But I prefer this one. I love Aliens. I think that this is fantastic. awesome. Sigourney Weaver, good stuff. This may be my favorite movie of all time, The Shawshank Redemption. Definitely my favorite Stephen King adaptation. And like I said, quite possibly my favorite movie of all time. I just watched this movie the other day. It was on like TNT or something like that, and I watched it all edited and cut up. It doesn't matter to me. There's another one. I've seen it. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many times, and I'll never stop watching it. I love this movie to death. I think that Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins were fantastic in this movie. I always liked Morgan Freeman, but now, to this day, when I see Tim Robbins, to me, that's Andy Dufresne. Love this movie. That's another one, though. I have to assume that everybody out there's seen it. All right, and this one is, I believe, the only comedy. Goonies is kind of a comedy. And The Breakfast Club, whatever. There's not very many comedies in this list. But this one is The Big Lebowski. The Dude Abides. I love The Big Lebowski. I just think that this movie would appeal to a whole lot of... It would not appeal to a few people out there. But for the most part, this movie's going to appeal to people. It's hilarious. There's raunchy stuff in here. There's drug use in here. Incredibly foul language in here. John Goodman's character in this movie is a mess. Steve Buscemi, it's so good. It's my favorite Jeff Bridges performance. Hands down, easy, no questions asked. Absolutely, positively love The Big Lebowski. All right, only a few more. All right, next up, my favorite Tom Hanks performance, Forrest Gump. This movie, a lot of people think it's kind of corny. I know that they do. Doesn't matter to me. I absolutely love it. I saw this movie in the movie theater 3 times. Love it. I saw it twice, and then it went away, and then when the Academy Awards were coming around, they put it back out again for a couple weeks, and I went and saw it again. I don't get tired of this movie. I'll never get tired of this one either. I just think the Tom Hanks performance in this movie, he was already on the map. This movie, like, it was then emblazoned on the map. He put this out, I can't remember if this was the year before or the year after Philadelphia. I think it was the year after Philadelphia. Don't hold me to that. Wonderful in Philadelphia. Obviously wonderful in Forrest Gump. He won back-to-back Academy Award Best Actor awards for this movie and Philadelphia. He's done several movies since then that I absolutely love, but this one is the one that means the most to me. I absolutely love this. When my son was pretty small, but he was coming to where he was, into watching movies and so forth, this is one of the first movies I sat him in front of, and he loved it. He still loves it. He's 13 years old, and every once in a while we still just sit down and watch Forrest Gump together. Absolutely love it. All right, next up, the movie that scared me more in my life than anything that I ever saw in my life, The Exorcist. I just watched this movie the other day too, again. I was upstairs editing YouTube videos, and I wanted to put something on for background noise, and I put The Exorcist on. I have it in my Vudu account, and it took me forever to edit that video because I kept stopping to watch The Exorcist. Once Reagan became possessed and the demons started to come out of her, every single time she was on screen, I had to stop what I was doing and watch it. Linda Blair's performance as Reagan McNeil in that movie is mind-blowing. I've never seen another kid in a movie that scared me as much as that performance did. I love The Exorcist. There's not a thing about that movie that I don't like. The only thing I don't like is that it's not like 5 hours long, and we don't have 3 hours of screen time with that little girl. That movie is one of the best horror movies, if not the best horror movie ever made, in my opinion. All right, and the last one here, someone recently asked me what franchises that I liked outside of the horror genre. And the very first one that came to mind for me was Rocky. Absolutely, positively love Rocky. My mom and my grandmom, when I was a little boy, took me to a screening of this movie in Philadelphia before that movie was actually released. And I've seen every Rocky movie every Rocky movie in the movie theater. I love every single one of them, even Part 5, even though it's kind of stank. Tommy Gunn, ridiculous. I love Rocky. I think that Rocky and Star Wars are the two franchises that have always been special to me as I was growing up, as much as I love Halloween and Friday the 13th and that kind of stuff. Rocky and Star Wars are the two that I grew up with. I feel like I grew up with Rocky, and the third one would probably be Rambo. I saw that in the movie theater, First Blood, when it came out. I begged my mom to go take me to see it. And it just, certain franchises that you grow up with, and I know a lot of people who watch my channel are younger, so they don't have that same experience that I did with Rocky and Rambo and Star Wars. But those three franchises, especially Rocky and especially Star Wars, they just mean a lot to me. So one of those movies had to be on my list. I almost put First Blood on this list, and I kind of feel like I should have put First Blood on this list. Another movie that should be in this pile is E.T. And E.T., I went over to my shelf to get E.T., and I don't own it. I can't even believe I don't own it. And what makes it even worse is within the past year, I saw that there was a 4K release of E.T. I saw it in Walmart 100 times. And I said, that's awesome that they put that out in 4K. I wonder how that looks in 4K. Maybe I'll get it someday. I already have it at home. I don't already have it at home. E.T. would be on this list if I owned it. But how am I going to put a list out of movies that you should own if I don't own it? All right. I'm done. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go get my kid up for school. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video and you've been enjoying my content up to this point, please do me a huge personal favor. Click that subscribe button and ring that bell. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a kick-ass day. And thank you for watching. Be well, folks. Later.